Hi, this is Tim Yoder with Fit Small Business. Today I'll be evaluating QuickBooks Online Plus for the Fit Small Business Case Study Chapter 1, which is just the basic company information. So I have already signed up for a 30-day trial of QuickBooks Online Plus, and when I signed in the first time, this is the screen it brought me to, so we'll start here. So I'm just going to follow the prompts here, click Next. I'm going to gather some information. So the business name, the case that he gives us is Fit HVAC and Plumbing Inc. Okay, we're not coming over from QuickBooks Desktop, so I'm not going to mark that box. The industry, what if we put plumbing? Here we go. Perfect. Okay, the case study tells us that we are an S corporation, so we'll click that. Provides services and sells products. Okay. I will say I am the bookkeeper. I'll say I'm the owner. Let's just say solo for now. We'll add other things later as we go through the case study. Let's skip the apps. I don't want to integrate anything. And I'm going to skip for now because I want to kind of manually set things up. So we don't want to link any bank accounts yet. Again, I want to do all of this stuff as we go through the case study. So I'm going to skip a lot of this stuff. Okay, so some of the things Chapter 1 asks us to do: set up the company name and address. We haven't set up the address yet. Okay, so where do we set up the address? So let's go to our settings and our company settings. Okay, it gives us a place for the EIN, which we don't have one in the case study. Here we go. Okay, telephone number. We're going to change that to 1-800-867-5309. And we don't have a website. Oh, looks like we have to have a website. Okay, we'll make one up. FitHVAC.com. Okay, company address is 100 First Street, New York, New York 10001. Okay, well, it searched for one. It's not a real address, so I guess it's going to make us do it manually. Okay, save that. Our suggestions, it's a made-up address, so it's doing a good job of double checking all of our data for us, but because this is a case study, a lot of our stuff is made up. Customer facing address, let's keep that the same. Legal address, let's keep that the same. Okay, so we've entered our email address, telephone number, company name, and address. So let's jump over here to our scorecard. We were able to do the name, address, telephone number, email address, entity type. Okay, So moving on in the case study, we need to set up our method of accounting, our fiscal year end. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so this deals with all of our sales, our expenses, maybe in advanced. Yeah, here we go, advanced. So our accounting method wants to be accrual, our case study tells us, so that is the accrual. Fiscal year end, December, so the first month of the year is January. Okay, so that is a December year end, so that's correct. Okay, good. Excellent. Now later in our case study here, it's going to ask us to close the books prior to 2021. And so let's click on this close the books. Closing date is going to be 12/31/2000. So nobody can make changes prior to that. So we're going to actually let's set it up so it's just a warning. So if somebody tries to make a change in that closed period, it'll give a warning. Excellent. Okay. Now let's see where we're at here. So we want to set up 3 separate classes to track and 2 separate locations to track. So I think that's in advanced here. Here we go. Track classes on. I'm going to warn me when we don't assign something to a class. 1 to each row in a transaction. I like that. And let's turn on locations. And so with locations, that's interesting. We can actually call them something different. So if we want to track departments as if they were separate locations or divisions, we could. But let's keep this at, just describe it as location. So let's save that. Okay, so that turns the classes and locations on. Now we want to set up 3 classes for HVAC, plumbing, and administrative. So I think we need to leave our options. Okay, so we're leaving our options, and now we need to go to setting up classes. So this should be in our lists. So let's do new. Okay, we want to manage our lists. Here we go. Under settings, I think we can look at lists. Here we go. So here is classes. Let's add a new class, and we're going to call it HVAC. Add another new class, and we're going to call it plumbing, and add another new class, and let's call it administrative. Okay, there's our 3 classes. Okay, let's go back to all lists and locations. Create 2 locations. One is going to be New York. And one is going to be Delaware. Okay, excellent. So let's see. I'm looking at the case study here. Excellent. We're looking good here. Okay, so let's fill out our scorecard. We were able to record a fiscal year. We created actually 3 classes. We created 2 locations. We closed the books prior to 2021. Okay, now we're moving on to modifying the chart of accounts. Okay, so the case study tells us, gives us the beginning trial balance as of December 31st, 2020, and so we need to set up our trial balance like that is set up. So let's take a look at our trial balance to start with. So let's get back to our dashboard here. Let's do our settings. I believe our chart of accounts, I think, is under. Yeah, here we go. Under lists is our chart of accounts. Okay, let's see our chart of accounts. Now, this chart of accounts is what was set up for us by the program when we told it that we were a HVAC and plumbing contractor. Okay, so these should be close to what we want. However, the program gives us account numbers, so let's see if we can use account numbers with these. So we have a cash account, so we want to edit this cash account. Okay, a starting date, beginning of this year, account balance $1,000. Okay, so one problem here is that we don't have account numbers. So we're going to have to go to settings, the account and settings. Actually, you know what? I think this is the wrong space. Let's close this. Let's go to settings, chart of accounts. Why is it doing that? Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's see what the settings. Nope. Okay, so again, what I'm looking for is the place to allow us to input account numbers. So let's go back. Maybe I was right the first time. Account and settings. Advanced, maybe. Here we go. Chart of accounts. Enable the chart of accounts. We don't need any tips. Or I'm sorry, enable account numbers. Okay, now let's go back to our chart of accounts. Okay, so now let's edit this. Oh, that brought us, so I double clicked on it, that brought us into its register rather than editing the chart of accounts. So let's go edit, cash account number 100, save. Okay, then we have a checking account 110. So I don't see a checking account set up here yet. So let's do a new account, category name, checking account. This is a bank account. Checking. Beginning of this year. Account balance from the case study is 10,000. And the account number is 110. Okay. Savings account of 150,000. We do not have a savings account set up, so let's do a new category name. So QuickBooks calls accounts categories. And our account number is 120. Okay, accounts receivable. So they already have an accounts receivable set up, and QuickBooks always will, because this is a system account. So when you issue invoices to your customers, it'll record them in this account. So we're just going to leave it be, except that we're going to how do we assign an account number to it? Let's see, can we put it there? No. Yeah, that takes us to the register. Okay, so we can't assign an account number apparently to the accounts receivable, which really isn't a problem because you shouldn't be banking journal entries to the accounts receivable. All those entries are pretty much automatic, but we can't assign an account number to that. Inventory, they have an inventory set up for us already. We can edit it, and let's set up the account number as 140. Okay, equipment of 75,000. We'll use this tools, machinery, and equipment. Oops, wrong button. Tools, machinery, and equipment. Edit it. Account number 150. Okay, so it's not allowing us to enter a beginning balance in equipment. Interesting. So it might track individual pieces of equipment, so you have to enter individual pieces of equipment in order to get the amount. Okay, well, we also have a vehicles account, so let's change the account number for that. But it doesn't let us put a beginning balance in that either. Okay, and then we have an accumulated depreciation account, and we want to change that account number to 190. Okay, we need an accounts payable account, which it should already have one set up. It does, accounts payable. We can't, just like accounts receivable, we can't give it a number, which is no big deal. A credit card payable, we're probably going to have to set that one up ourselves. Okay. That is a liability. And that is we'll call it a line of credit, I guess. Okay. It's not letting us put a beginning balance in that one either. Loan payable is the next item. We do have long-term business loans, so let's just give it an account number. We don't have a beginning balance, but it's still not asking for the beginning balance, so I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, common stock should already be there. Common stock. Not allowing us to put a beginning balance in there. Additional paid in capital. Let's give it an account number. Okay, and then the final account number is retained earnings. So let's see if they do have a retained earnings account. Let's give it an account number. Okay, and again, no beginning balance. I'm just going to look at some of these others. Okay, so I don't know why all of a sudden it's not letting us do beginning balances. I'm going to create another cash account just out of curiosity because I want to see if it'll let me. Let's set it up as a bank account because the other ones did let us put a beginning balance. Okay, so it is for that type of account, it is allowing us a beginning balance. But for a lot of these other ones, it's not. That is very odd. So for these chart of accounts, these accounts that we're not allowed to enter a beginning balance for, I think we're just going to have to go in and do a journal entry in their register. So equipment, we want to record a $75,000 beginning balance. So let's view their register and let's just do a journal entry as of 12/31/2000. Just call it beginning balance. 75,000. Okay, and the other side of that will just be to our retained earnings account. It's just telling us we have a missing class field. That's fine. We'll keep track of class and location starting in 2021. And so it's just telling us it's prior to the company's closing date. Remember, I'd set the 12/31/2000 closing date, so it's warning us this is in a prior period, but it's fine because we're trying to set up beginning balances. Okay, so let's do that for each of these transactions here. So vehicles, view register, add journal entry. Okay, accumulated depreciation 115,000. So this is a contra asset account. I'm going to call it a increase. Make sure this goes in the right direction here, so that goes to retained earnings. Okay. We'll check, make sure that that is a credit balance here before we finish this. Okay, credit card payable 6,000. Oh, that's the wrong date. Well, that was a nice easy way to change it. Okay. Just a couple more. We need common stock now of 1,000. Whoa, where did that come from? Oh, line of credit. So credit card payable we put under line of credit. So this is a subcategory to lines of credit. Okay, that's fine. We have common stock of 1,000. Additional paid in capital of 20,000. Okay, now our open balance equity, this is a plug figure that QuickBooks puts in to make the balance sheet equal. Why isn't, let's run report. Oh, looks like I made that the wrong date. Okay, so let's take a look at our balance sheet. So let's go back to our home here. Reports. Balance sheet. So let's look at our balance sheet as of the prior year. So these are the ones we put in with the manual journal entries, and this is the wrong direction. So I wasn't sure. I put it as an increase, but it's a contra account, so it should have been a decrease. I can't seem to drill down there. Okay, let's go back to our report summary. So we got other stuff to fix as well. So why credit card payable? So the items where we put in a beginning balance are not showing up, like the cash on hand and the checking account. Well, let's go back to our chart of accounts. Okay, so they put the balance in at 1/1/21 instead of 12/31/2000. Okay, so we can deal with that. So let's look at, okay, but we need to change the accumulated depreciation account. This should be a decrease instead of an increase. Okay, so that looks correct. So get that one more time. Oh yeah, this needs to be a credit. Okay, so let's now look at our reports again. Let's look at our balance sheet. This time let's look at it as of 01. Okay, so that looks correct. That looks correct. 6,000 there, 127, 161. Earnings. So those two together there. Okay, and that's fine. So open balance equity is part of your retained earnings. So our retained earnings in total is 154,000. It's showing up that way because the amounts we were able to input just directly as beginning balances, those get offset against open balance equity. All the other entries where we made journal entries went to retained earnings because you can't directly debit something to open balance equity. Okay. Well, actually, you know what? Let's see if you can do that. So let's go back to chart of accounts. Now let's look at some of these. So this machinery. Let's view the register. Let's edit this transaction. And instead of retained earnings, can we put this to open balance equity? Yes, you can. Okay, there we go. So So let's do that for all of these entries. I'm going to go ahead and pause so you don't have to watch this. Okay, so now I've recorded all of these opening journal entries for the accounts where we couldn't put in a beginning balance. I recorded them all going to open balance equity instead of retained earnings. And now our open balance equity is 154,000, which matches the retained earnings from the case study. So we're good. Now we have our beginning balances. So that was way more difficult than it had to be because it didn't allow us to enter the beginning balances, but we were able to do it. Okay, so let's go to our scorecard here. Modify the chart of accounts. I'm going to give it a point. Input 12/31/2020 balances. I'm going to give it half a point because you could do it through journal entries, but that's way harder than it has to be. Okay, and then the final part of chapter 1 deals with additional users. So in addition to, in this case, Paul Plummer, let's set up an additional user for Jane Doe. So I think it's fairly straightforward here. We want to go to Options, Manage Users under your company, and let's add a user. Now, it tells us that we want to limit their access to recording and paying bills. Okay, so we're going to set them up as a standard user. How much access do you want them to have? I'm going to give them limited access, and we want them to record and pay bills, and so that's dealing with vendors. So they can only deal with vendor transactions. So essentially this is our accounts payable clerk. Okay, very good. Do they need to submit their own timesheets? Sure. We'll say no. We don't want to deal with employees right now. Do you want this user to add, edit, and remove users? No. Do you want this user to edit company information? No. Do you want this user to manage subscriptions? No. So this is simply our accounts payable clerk. Set it up for Jane Doe and just make up a email address for her. Okay, and then click Save, and it's going to show it then as pending until they actually receive the invite and log in. Okay, so good. We're able to add a user with no problem limiting their access. So let's go to our scorecard. We added an additional user, and we were able to restrict the rights of the additional user. Okay, couple other items it wants us to check for. Could we have imported our chart of accounts? So let's look there. If we go back to our chart of accounts, I think there is a way to import it. We can do New, and we can do Import. Okay, and here we can upload a Excel file with all of our information in it. So let's download the sample file here and see what all is in it. See if we could have done our beginning balances. Taking a little time to open here. Okay, so it looks like it doesn't give us the beginning balances that can import. Tell you what I want to do though. Let's start going through. I'm going to delete this row. What I want to do is see if when we import it, it has a field for beginning balances. Just stick in some random numbers here. We're not going to go through the complete import because I don't want to mess anything up that's already there, but let's see if it would allow us to import these beginning balances. So save. Okay, now I think that should be in my downloads folder, so let's try to pick that out of there. Downloads. Okay. Yeah, it is not giving us a place to enter the beginning balance. So it's not letting us bring over the beginning balance. Okay, so let's cancel out of that. Okay, so back to our scorecard. We can import the chart of accounts. We cannot import the beginning balances. Okay, so that's chapter one. That was a lot more difficult than you thought it might be, than I thought it might be. Surprise, QuickBooks has difficulty. It doesn't let us into those beginning balances. But setting up your company is always one of the hardest parts of any software. Once you get it set up properly, it should be easy to use. So that's chapter one.